Welcome to the Enlighten Up podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Hey everyone, welcome back to another Reality Recap Awakened edition of this week's episodes of The Valley and Summer House. Ooh, we have a lot to get into, and I just want to preface this and say, Paige scorched west, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it because he had it coming, and I will say I love West. I really do. I love him, but he needed a good reality check. And who better than Paige to put him there? And we're going to get to that because obviously that happened at the end of the Summer House episode. But, as always, I'm going to start with Summer House instead of the Valley, even though like they aired the opposite way, just because I just think Summer House is way better. Now, I think the Valley is great too. That's why I'm covering it. And we're going to have a lot to discuss there. But let's get into the first reunion episode of the Summer House season 8. And, we left off seeing that Carl called off the wedding with Lindsay, and she had her girl moment at Danielle's apartment where it was very Sex and the City-ish, and they're all deciding like, let's all go to Mexico together. So now, we get to the reunion, and Lindsay starts off by saying before she even gets on stage that she doesn't even look at Carl with any emotion anymore, because Danielle was maybe it was Gabby was asking her like, how are you doing? And then we see Carl, who's just arrived in the building as well. And this is interesting. He's talking about how he has been prepping for this for 8 months, and he's been doing the work to clean up his side of the street. And I've got some little insight here. I was listening to a podcast with, I don't know if you guys watched the reality show Below Deck. But the original Below Deck had Captain Lee on there. And as someone, I actually considered, I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually almost went the route of working on yachts instead of moving to the Cayman Islands. It was like, do I move to the Cayman Islands or to become a yachty? Like, do I work on these $1 million like boats, or do I work down on the islands? And I really was like going back and forth with it. And I remember having a tarot reading over it up in Canada before I made the move. And I ultimately decided to go to the Cayman Islands instead because I wanted more rootedness. And obviously when you're on a boat life, it's very like come and go. There's not a lot of security there. And so that's why I didn't go. But of course, so I'm very intrigued by the whole Below Deck lifestyle and everything. Well, Captain Lee, and we're going to get into this at the very end as well. But I just want to say, like, he had on his most recent podcast that I believe just came out a day or two ago, actually opened up for the first time about something that happened between him and Carl at BravoCon last fall. And that's going to be part of what I get into in this episode because BravoCon gets brought up in this reunion. And he alludes to something that I know is likely very much an issue that's going on with Carl because, like I've been saying with you guys, I dated someone who's been on this journey that Carl's on right now. And I know the signs. I know what is likely some of the issues that Carl's going through. It's just because I have such a strong, close, personal experience with it. So when he says he's doing the work to clean up his side of the street, his side of the street isn't so clean. Okay. Let's just say Carl's had this. Oh, I think he's got a disillusionment with his performance when it comes to work. And when it comes to doing the work, I don't, Carl's exactly where he needs to be. Okay, so we're just going to say that. And then, I just want to say that everyone comes out on stage one by one, and I just want to say all the ladies look amazing. I'm not a big fan of Danielle's look, but I mean, I think all the ladies look amazing. And even Andy says, I'm gonna be ending up straight by the end of this episode. And I couldn't tell if it was Sierra or Gabby who said I'm gonna be gay, but I'm thinking it was Sierra. Who knows? But all I want to say is Sierra, oh my gosh, as she's sitting there and everyone and Andy's starting all the conversations, if looks could kill, this girl has ice daggers coming not just from her eyes, but it's like her whole face is just like freezing energy over towards West. But well, we find out why, and I think she's completely justified. So then he introduces, or he says hello to Gabby, and of course she brings up how she's Taurian and it's Taurus season, and she goes, you don't piss us off, and she's absolutely right. Us Tauruses are very stubborn. Listen, we are loyal as fuck, okay? We are loyal to a fault. But if you piss us off, it's like a Scorpio, right? We're just a little less suspecting as a Scorpio. We come for it. So yeah, you don't want to piss us off. And then, Andy says, on behalf of America, I'm so glad you are not getting married. And he says this to Carl and Lindsay, and everyone agrees. Everyone's unanimous about this. Carl claims that okay, so this is what's interesting. He immediately jumps into the conversation where Carl ended it with Lindsay and they're not getting married anymore. Carl claims in this moment that his original intention for this conversation was not to call off the wedding. Okay. And he says it was to get on the same page. Bullshit. Bullshit is all I have to say. That is a flat out lie. I mean, even in this moment, Carl still can't own it. He still can't own it. Like, dude, you would have been totally within your right to say, yeah, I'm calling off the wedding. Like, you were totally within your right. Like, you guys shouldn't have been getting married, Like, I don't understand why he's still like going on this, like, oh, I just wanted to get on the same page. Like, you don't ask production to pick up the cameras so that you can get on the same page. I mean, clearly these two, like just from the jump of this episode starting, like watching them fight, it's just, you see literally like the demons within them are like coming out because they activate the demonic entities within each of these two. And I will say it's like, it's crazy. It's just crazy watching these two. And I will say there is actually something that they admit to here that I know I did too when I was with my ex-boyfriend. So Lindsay says the night before she had asked Carl, so the night before production picked up the cameras and they actually filmed that conversation, she actually went to Carl to ask why they want to film with them, because she obviously had no idea. And what's so interesting is we find out from Gabby is that they had not even spoken yet from the weekend, from the Sunday when they got home. There was no interaction, no conversation. So their very first conversation from like where everything started to like explode and get like volcanic between those two really wasn't even attempted to be mended until this moment. So Lindsay claims that when she went to ask him, because he was sleeping in the other bedroom, Carl started screaming at her and he is denying that. And she says, no, you said if you don't change, I am this close to canceling the wedding, this close. And she goes, and you screamed it like 20 times. And I got to tell you right now, straight out of the jump, I totally believe Lindsay more than I believe Carl. And if there's one reason why is because I've watched Lindsay throughout this whole episode. Lindsay is someone who will mostly, like, she doesn't lie. Okay, she doesn't lie. She may not own everything that she needs to own, but it's not because she's lying, it's because she's got a bit of a warped perception sometimes of what the truth actually is. But she's not a liar. Carl, we know, is a liar through avoiding conflict. Also, he's trying to desperately protect his image. We already know that he had a huge fear of being canceled from last episode. And what I'm seeing happening here on the stage is like watching someone like try to present themselves in the best light possible, and also try to activate and show his ex-partner in the worst light possible. And it's like you can't do both at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And he's trying to, which is backfiring against him. And I don't even know if he even realizes like that he's doing this and that it's totally going to work against him. Um, because, Carl starts then saying, because what he starts saying to Lindsay is take ownership, take ownership. He goes, you are in such denial. And I'm like, dude, you didn't even just own that you called off, that you went into this conversation to call off the wedding. Like, you couldn't even just own that. And like, even when you like rewind really quickly back to like when he had his conversation with Kyle before his conversation with Lindsay in the last episode, when he was sitting there and Kyle was like, do you even want to get married? The way he was like holding his, again, like I remember I told you guys, he's holding his hands over his fingers, over his mouth. He was stopping himself from saying what he really wanted to say. He goes, which I know was, no, I don't want to get married. And so he's like holding because he can't say it, because if he does say that, his whole defense goes out the window of him like saying, I was wanting just to get on the same page. You're the one who called off the wedding. I didn't want to, like, the guy can't even just take ownership for a decision. Like, he has such a difficult time owning his decisions. And it's very clear here. Then he goes on. This is just rich. Let me just tell you, this was so rich. I paid rent for 9 months. And he goes, and I paid over 125 grand for the wedding. And Lindsley's like, yeah, you paid 9 months of rent for something that you signed the lease 1 month before you ended up calling off the wedding. It's like, dude, you got to honor your contracts. Like, that's just how it is. Like, you're going to make these big decisions. Yeah, there's going to be some fallout. No, it's not going to be clean. It's not going to be easy, and you're going to probably have to, like, I don't know, you're going to have to take some hits. And that would have been one of the hits, is like, yeah, you're going to have to maybe pay for a place that you're not going to be living in. But look, short-term pain, long-term, like, reward. You're not going to be in a marriage of suffering. But he can't even like see it that way. And then and it's like, well, you paid over 125 grand for the wedding. And Lindsay's like, yeah, because you cancel it. And those were the cancellation fees. Like, why would I pay for that? She's right. And so then she's like, what, do you want a pat on the back? And Carl's like, maybe a high five. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, like, he is the epitome of the participation trophy. Okay, this is where the participation trophy has served our population so desperately badly. Like, it's just, do not offer participation trophies anymore, because this is what you get. Yeah, give me a high five for like paying and cleaning up my side of the street, like taking responsibility. Like, it's just called taking responsibility for your actions. That's it. Like, it was a hard decision. I applaud you for making that decision, even though you won't even own it yet. So like that kind of sucks. But whenever we make these hard decisions in life, yeah, there are going to be some moments where you feel like you're getting kicked in the teeth, but look, like that's life. You take you take the immediate pain so you don't have drawn out suffering for years and years, decades even. Okay? So like that's why people avoid these decisions in the first place, is because of the immediate pain. So, anyways, then we switch directions here, and Andy starts talking about, the summer bromance between all the guys. And I really did love the energy. I'm so glad that they brought West and Jesse into the mix this year. I think that was great casting. What I didn't like about last year's season is that it didn't feel like they had enough male energy in the house, and it was too female dominant. And male energy does bring in a little more playfulness. It brings in a little less seriousness. It gets people out of their routines. You see them doing stupid guy stuff that at the end of the day, most of us just love. And I think it's great. And so these two brought in a certain summer lightheartedness, playfulness that was really missing from the mix last year. And so, there cuts to the scene of like West and Kyle spooning, like waking up, spooning each other after a drunken night, I guess. I totally missed that scene. I don't even remember seeing it. And then, Jesse talks about his slow start, but he really, he went about it in a really bad way. He hits on Paige, who he knows is a taken woman. He's going in hard with the drinking. And so, like, of course, the way he came off to everyone was like total douchebag, total fuckboy, right? And he is a fuckboy right now. Like, he really is. But at the end of the day, though, like, what I appreciate about him versus West is at least he's honest about what his intentions are and what he's looking for. He's not ready to jump into any relationship. He just wants to, like, have his summer fun, and maybe if something leads to something, great, which I don't necessarily buy, but that's okay. He kind of laid it out on the table. So I always appreciate people who are upfront. But then it moves to Sierra, and Andy asked Sierra like how she feels about it all, and she's like, I feel like, because he asked her, how did you feel about Wes? Because she warmed up so quickly to him. And that's not normally what happens with Sierra. She doesn't normally warm up to a guy as quickly as she did to West. And she goes, yeah, but I got, and I was like, ooh. So we already have a preface here of where this is all going. And this, I haven't even looked on social media. I'm really curious to see, because, West had a New York Times article written about him, about like, him being like the number one guy on Bravo right now. And everyone's just loving him. And he's shot to the top of the charts. His star is shooting right now and all that. And yeah, that's all going to change for West a little bit at the very minimum. I don't expect him to take a hard fall. But he's got a little bit of a rude awakening coming. He's going to get a little reality check coming to him from the Bravo audience that is predominantly women, and love Sierra for the most part. So then we get into Kyle being asked to be a flower boy for Carl's wedding. And I totally forgot about this part. And I'm so glad that they brought it up at the reunion, because that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, when Carl asked Kyle to not be a groomsman at his wedding, but to be a flower boy alongside Andrea and Luke, who have both been in past seasons of Summer House. And this is interesting because he played it off and he made it seem he was very good at withholding information and just giving enough so that people would come to their own conclusions, that it was Lindsay who decided that Kyle could be a flower boy. And even I remember Paige saying something, like that would be such a boss move on her part of saying, yeah, you want to like call me out last season and whatever. She goes, you're going to be a flower boy and throw petals of flowers in front of me while I walk down the aisle. Like Paige, I remember, was loving that. But in this instant, we find out that it was actually Carl who decided to not make Kyle a groomsman. So we find out, Lindsay speaks up and she goes, no, look, we both decided on the number 9 for our wedding party each. So we each had 9 groomsmen and 9 bridesmaids. And because Carl has a lot of friends from his childhood, which is totally understandable, when it came to it, he had 11. Okay. And she didn't have as many. And so, and I can understand 11 is a really large number for a wedding party. So even 9, I find to be really high. But, like they decided on 9. So he decided that, he wasn't going to make Kyle a groomsman. She goes, well, we got to put Kyle in the wedding. She actually was the one who suggests, like, where are we going to put him? She goes, and what about if one of your groomsmen backs out? Who are you going to have? You may need a backup. See, this is Lindsay. She's thinking about all the scenarios. She's looking at all the possible situations that could go wrong and how do we have backups? She's a planner. This is why she's so good and why she's where she is in her career, is because she's really not afraid to look at worst case scenario. Whereas Carl's the kind of person like, oh no, it's all going to work out. We're just going to have a good time. Everything's going to work out. And, we don't even need to think about the worst case scenario because you know what? Chances are it won't happen. And then, it does happen. And then you have like someone like Carl crying and like running to mom to find out what the answer is. Okay. That was a little mean. So anyways, Carl felt this is where his, okay, no, first I want to say we find out from Lindsay in this moment that if one of his groomsmen had backed out, she goes, who would take his place? Would it be Kyle? He said, no, it would be Andrea. So Andrea would actually get a position as a groomsman before Kyle would. And she said that. And if you noticed in this episode, Carl doesn't deny it. He doesn't, you can tell from when they pan to his face and all these different shots that he's just like, oh shit. Oh shit. So this conversation happened. I so believe Lindsay in this moment versus Carl, because all he then says is, he feels like Lindsay didn't want Kyle in the wedding. And Andy is like, well, but that's not what she said. He goes, but she's telling you like to make sure that the guys are in there. And he just goes, no, I felt like she didn't want Kyle to be a groomsman. And so, what you feel and what actually happened, as someone who's saying to Lindsay that she's disillusioned with everything, that she was in denial of like what reality is. It's like, we've got a lot of examples of the pot calling the kettle black here. I want to say with both of them, but in this particular instance, yeah, Carl, like you're kind of caught in your own little web here that you spun for yourself. And again, can't own it, but keeps telling Lindsay, own it, take ownership. And it's like, oh my God. Okay. So then Andy asks, who agrees or who believes that Carl was afraid of Lindsay? And everyone raises their hand, even Carl. And the only one who says, like, who doesn't is Jesse. And he's like, no, I don't think that he was afraid of Lindsay. I just think he was afraid of Lindsay's reaction, which rightfully so. I would be too. So then Carl claims that he's a people pleaser, which is why, this is why their communications broke down. It's like, yeah, okay, he's right. You are a people pleaser, but you're also you're also like conflict avoidant, like very conflict avoidant. And so you put those two together And I would say that he's more conflict avoidant than a people pleaser in these situations. Like, and so this is why their communication, I ultimately think this is one of the biggest reasons why their communication broke down, at least as they started at least being in therapy. Because from what I saw on, and of course this wasn't in every instance, especially that one scene where they were sitting on that step balcony on the beach that went to the dock. I don't know, wherever that was, that place that they went to on a Sunday where Carl was trying to talk to her and trying to make peace and understand. This was after she called him like cocaine Carl. She was really gaslighting him. And so it's in this particular instance, her communication wasn't so great. Again, when you have alcohol the night before, you may have a distorted version of what the truth is. To be fair, though, I am now starting to understand why she may not take Carl's word for what happened, because I can see he's as manipulative as her. Like these both of them are very manipulative in things. So then Andy goes to Lindsay. You don't seem like a fun person to argue with. And she's like, who is a fun person to argue with? And Paige is like, I think I am. And we love Paige. I got to tell you, I've always liked Paige. I haven't loved her. Love her after this season. Like I don't think Craig, her current boyfriend, gets enough credit for the improvement of Paige. I believe it's a Paige 2.0. And I think Craig should get some, credit here for, obviously, I think I love their relationship. It's not a traditional relationship by any stretch of the imagination, but me personally, I love that. I think that's great. I mean, there's a reason why there's a 50% plus divorce rate in our country. Like everyone's trying to go about their relationships, maybe in the wrong way, maybe, spicing up and shaking things up and not doing it the way everyone tells you to. There's an answer to that. There's validity to that. So I think that as much as Paige has definitely turned Craig into a Craig 2.0, I think he's done the same for her. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that. So then, everyone agrees that, last summer, the summer before this episode, like this season, that they all agreed that Lindsay and Carl were sugarcoating their relationship, that they were trying to make it seem better than where they were at. And of course, last season was when Carl proposed to Lindsay. And so then for some reason they get back to when Lindsay and Carl had broken up now. This is just post cameras going down. And she was stuck in the apartment for 2 weeks. And because there was paparazzi out there, and Carl's blaming Lindsay. He's kind of insinuating that she was the one who called the paparazzi to be out there when he got to the apartment to come up. And she's like, I was already there. Like I was there. And he's like, no, you weren't. And then you have Gabby and Danielle being like, we were there on that day. Like we were actually upstairs. So, like that I thought was, that was interesting. And so I don't know who's doing the leaking, but I got the sense that it wasn't Lindsay. Now Carl is back at Loverboy. So Andy's asking about this. And he asked Kyle, he goes, do you believe that if they were still together, like Carl might not be at Loverboy right now? Like, do you think, and he was, well, questionable, right? That was his answer. But apparently, Lindsay now opens up and shares with all of us that while cameras were not filming that summer, they were all playing tennis. She was playing tennis with Kyle, and Sierra and Gabby were both there. And Kyle said to Lindsay, hey, I may bring Carl back on for that non-elk product. And Lindsay said to him, great, I hope you do. How do you claim it's questionable when she says that? And she goes on to say that, like, all I wanted was to get a job, like if he's going to get a job and it's going to be secure, and I think when it comes to them having the conversations, she's trying to make sure that he doesn't get taken advantage of in the rehiring process, or any way that he's getting brought back into Loverboy is if it's as a consultant or not. She's trying to help, get Carl on the best footing possible. It's like, okay, how do you make sure that, you're not going to find yourself in the same situation that you were in last year where you didn't feel like appreciated, and you felt like you were undervalued in the company. So, she says, if that's what makes him happy, then great. That's how when Andy asked her, how do you feel about Carl being back at Loverboy? And she's like, if that makes him happy, great. And so again, we can see that Carl wanted to pin all of the confusion on Lindsay. When it came to the groomsman thing of like Kyle being a flower boy, he made it seem like that was what Lindsay wanted. Wasn't what Lindsay wanted. Carl just didn't have the balls to tell Kyle. And so he used Lindsay, as the scapegoat. Doing the exact same thing here, where it comes to him coming back to Loverboy, knowing that, he left the company and there was discord between him and Kyle, that he's now trying to make it like, oh, but it was Lindsay who's like being the issue right now. Lindsay's not, he's trying to like really shirk all of his responsibilities, which again is just something he's going to have to learn to get over because it's so unattractive. Like and not only is it unattractive, it's a really bad quality to have as someone who wants to get married and be a provider in the household, like if you really want to have a partner in life, you're going to have to lead, and if you can't take ownership for your decisions, if you don't know how to lead, like I think about this all the time. As much as I have to lead in all areas of my life as a single woman, I will gladly give the reins to my partner. I want my partner to take the reins and me be in a place where I trust him. So yeah, I'm like, I trust the decisions you're going to make for us. Doesn't mean I won't be part of the conversations, of how we get there, but like whatever decisions you make, like I want you to lead us. I don't want to make all the decisions anymore, and that's part of me dropping more into my feminine and allowing my partner to be in his masculine. So then we all moved to the conversation where the girls were all getting along this summer. And it was the first summer where all of the girls were getting along. And I love that about this season. I thought that was so great. I mean, it was so great that everyone was pretty much getting along except Lindsay and Carl. And of course, that blip between Danielle and Gabby earlier on. But it was so refreshing to see all the girls getting along. What a good vibe to watch. And so then they go to, he asked about Lindsay and Danielle because they had a really rough season last year. And he was like, how did you guys get back on board? And they're like, well, we took your advice and we hashed it out off camera. And they started to rebuild it slowly over the summer. And then, they talk about this pic that Lindsay posted of all the girls having dinner together, where I think it said girls rule, boys drool, or something like that. Um, and it was kind of like, why are you taking digs at Carl? Like, trying to get them on team Carl, or sorry, trying to get them on team Lindsay versus team Carl. And she's like, that's not what the picture was about. And I totally believe that as well. Like, I just think there's too much reading into it. Like, what she can't like post a picture of her feeling supported by her friends who we saw them clearly build a friendship over the summer, and that it totally made sense to me. And like they're all gorgeous. They're definitely a force to be reckoned with. And so, yeah, if you want to put girls rule, guys drool, like I don't think that's a diss at Carl. Like that's just a female to male kind of thing. So, um, then we kind of move to Paige opening up about something shady that apparently Lindsay did to her during the summer that she only found out about at BravoCon this fall, or last fall, I should say. So at BravoCon, she found out from Carl, of all people, that Lindsay, who was friends with someone, so basically Paige was doing a photo shoot in the summer, and one of Lindsay's friends was on the photo shoot and called Lindsay and was like, should like basically like they were trying to sabotage her photo shoot. And like Carl, that's what Carl heard. He said he overheard Lindsay talking to her friend about that. And he told Paige this at BravoCon, which was her birthday weekend as well. And she claims, like, I got told this on my birthday. And she's like, I was physically ill, like hearing this. Like, it really disturbed her. Lindsay genuinely looks like she has no idea what Paige is talking about. Like, no idea. Um, Lindsay has copped to some things on this episode. Like, she's actually owning some things. This one, she's like, I genuinely don't remember that conversation. Now, if Paige's photo shoot was like in the middle of the night when Lindsay could have been drinking, there's a could have been a possibility, but I doubt that her photo shoot was in the middle of the night where Lindsay may have been having some drinks and maybe, said some things that she wouldn't remember, later on. But there's something that doesn't sit right about this whole thing. And I feel like Carl may have twisted a few little words just or withheld some information so that Paige could come to her own conclusions, just like he did with Kyle about the groomsman and Kyle about Loverboy. I don't know. Something is just not adding up there for me. And so, and then, what basically Paige is like, they like have it out for me. And Andy's like, what do you mean by they? And they're like, Danielle. And so then now Danielle gets brought up and it refers back to last year when she leaked, which she never copped to. Um, Actually, Paige thought it was Lindsay who had leaked a story about her and Craig at Kyle's wedding or something about that. And Lindsay tells Paige this summer that it was Danielle, it wasn't me. And I remember when I saw this scene earlier in the season, I was like, oh my God, you and Danielle are just getting on like a better page. Is this exactly the thing you need to be doing? Now, in this moment, Lindsay's like, I wanted to clear my name. Okay, fair enough. You're being demonized for something you didn't do. Um, but yeah, you should have maybe told Danielle that you just told Paige this. But Danielle, this is what I don't like about Danielle. So she kind of cops to leaking it to Des Moines, who I guess was who published the story. But she keeps skirting around the question that Andy keeps asking her. Goes, do you regret leaking that story now? And she doesn't say she regrets it. She keeps like dancing around giving that answer. And I, you know, that's shady. I don't like that. I don't like that energy. It's like, even now when you girls are getting along better, you're not willing to like say, yeah, that was shitty of me. Danielle, she has a lot of insecurities and she just comes across as very thirsty. Like to try hard. I don't know. It's like she's always looking for validation through something. And I don't, she even comes for Paige here in saying like, your confessionals aren't funny. And she's like, Paige is like, my confessionals are funny. And I would agree. Like Paige's confessional, she is savage. She is so good in her delivery, in like, even again, like she scorches West. She says some things at the end that I'm just like, oh, it was perfect, perfectly executed. Like I telling you, I have a sharp tongue and I have a good sense of wit. It's my Sagittarius moon, okay, with my Taurus sun. And I will say that I appreciate when someone is put in their place when they need to be. And I don't like that side of me to come out too often, but when it does, watch out, is all I have to say. And like I've said before, it's usually reserved just for the people who really deserve it. But okay, so Danielle says here, Lindsay, you should have at least come to me and told me that you said that to her so I could take Paige and like, hash it out with her. And she's like, you know what? You're right. I should have come to you. So Lindsay's owning that right there. So that's good. Then we get into talking about Balloon Guy, which I don't know why everyone thought he was so hot. And we kind of see the whole scene that happened between Danielle and Gabby that was just so horrible to watch. Like that was a low moment for Danielle on Summer House seasons altogether. Like that was a low moment. And it was just a really shitty side that came through on her part where like she kept bringing up how she's a CEO and founder to kind of validate why she like how she knows how to have empathy for people because she leads people and she's always listening to their needs. And what I love is I don't know if they say it like here, but I think where is it? Oh yeah, Kyle says Amanda is way more emotionally intelligent than me, and she isn't a founder or CEO. And I'm just like, Kyle, that's one of the smartest things you've said in a while. And it's so true. And I'm like, I don't understand what being a CEO or founder has anything to do with having emotional, empathy towards your friend, any kind of emotional connection, intelligence. It's just, it just the connection point of where Danielle was trying to make there was totally lost on everyone watching. It didn't make any sense. And it's like, I don't know, like what has your friendship and how you communicate with your friend have anything to do with your status in your business? Like two completely different realms of your life. And so, she said, I as a CEO, I don't want to come across as dismissive to my employees or whatever. So I listen to them and it's like, you were so dismissive of Gabby's feelings that night. Like you couldn't have been more dismissive. It was, again, it's just so interesting to witness how some people lack so much self-awareness, which we'll get into in the valley. But Danielle is lacking a lot of self-awareness. And, if you're not willing to look at yourself, that means there's something that you truly are scared of seeing and finding. And so it's just better to like deny that it's there, pretend that it doesn't exist, don't really listen to anyone else of what they're saying, and if you're not willing to look at yourself, that is a sign that dark shadows are going to start emerging. And I feel like she's already in that place. Like she's already getting down. Yeah, there's a little, I mean, she's already in the dark night of the soul from the breakup that she had last year because we just saw her even when she did the winter house thing and from when she broke up and watching how she held her just kind of how she carried herself and how she behaved on that show was so cringe and so incredibly difficult. It was awkward. I felt pity for her while I was watching that, like it was just so bad. And whatever place she's in, it's not good. And she's going to have to like face some things about herself. So then we get to talking about the Sierra West Summer House romance. All right. So, they talk about like, hey, Jesse, why did you have to call out the fact that Sierra's not having sex with West on that rooftop patio, like while they were back in the city? And, and he's like, well, I just wanted to make sure that Ciara wasn't playing games with my boy West. And it's like, whoa, okay. And we all find out that it was the opposite. Even though I don't think West was purposely trying to play games with Sierra, but he also was setting himself up for that kind of narrative just through the lack of clarity on his end and the lack of direction he was willing to take. So Sierra and West, apparently, once the cameras went down, they hung out a lot. They hung out for September, October, and November. And apparently, Sierra only lives 10 blocks away from West. So it was really easy. And they were hanging out pretty much every day together. And so Andy straight out asks her, did you sleep with him? And she's like, yeah, we slept together. So we know that in the season, Sierra made it very clear that one of the reasons why she wasn't sleeping with West because she knows she catches feelings when she sleeps with a man. And it's very difficult for most women to not catch feelings when they sleep with a man. It's one of the ways that like a woman will start to fall in love. It's a very like sacred space for us females, and rightfully so for men too, but like it's not really perceived that way from a male perspective. Um, so basically, we find out from Sierra that they went to his parents' house, they stayed with his brother in Chicago, and they even attended a wedding together. On top of the fact that we know that they only lived 10 blocks away from each other and they were spending almost every day together. That sounds more like dating. And so Andy asks him, "Were you dating?" And he goes, "Basically, yes." Okay, basically, yes is again very like riding the fence. Like, we're not so clear yet. And this is where West is going to learn. West is going to find himself learning a very important lesson. And I'm seeing this really kind of coming up for him of where his path is going to take him, that he's going to have to start facing. But we'll get into that in a second. Um, so he then gets asked by Andy if he slept with any other woman over the summer. Now we know Paige asked him outright on the boat if he was sleeping with any other women, and he said no. We also know that in one of his confessionals, he danced around that, saying, I didn't feel it was appropriate to have that conversation with Paige and really get into anything if I haven't had that conversation with Sierra yet, which he's absolutely correct. I I do agree that that should be not coming from his mouth to her best friends to then her. It should come directly from him. But I think all of us knew in that moment he's been sleeping with some women over the summer. Like, I mean, come on. He's not getting it all summer and he's lying next to a hot woman every weekend in bed, like sharing a bed with her. He's primed to be needing some release somewhere down the road. I mean, and it's not that I would say he'd be at fault for that, like considering that they hadn't defined anything and they weren't intimate yet. But again, you can tell he's really riding the fence on where he's going to go. He's not sure how he's going to handle this situation because, as we're going to find out, blinded by the lights and fame. Okay. So Sierra felt like West was playing a game with her and that he was using her to some degree because she does have already a strong following through the Summer House audience and Bravo just in general. I mean, she's gorgeous. She's like one of the most gorgeous women I've ever seen. And also I really appreciate her her commitment to her boundaries. Like, no, like this is what I want. Like, you don't just get to sleep with me and then you go off and you do whatever. She's really being strong in what she sets out, and she's been really good at maintaining those boundaries. But I can see why she would start sleeping with him if they're spending every day together. He's taking her to his parents. He's taking her to his brothers in Chicago to spend a weekend. You go to a wedding together. Like, come on. At that point, you're dating. So apparently in December, they sat down for a dinner to find out, are we on the same page? And we find out that Wes just couldn't commit to her. And he said it was for show related reasons. What? What? Oh, dude, like you just crushed all the people who were rooting for you. Like, I was really rooting for West. I was like, dude, make the right decision. Like, come on. And he really hurts Sierra. We see her get quite emotional. And, what we see is that he's like, how am I going to navigate this? Is it best for me to do this, to do it alone, or to do it with someone? And it's like, what? What's he saying here right now? Like I'm listening to him and I'm like, this guy's dancing around something that I'm not really sure I understand. And you can tell he's just trying to find the perfect way to say something that he knows is not going to come across so great. And Sierra basically says, if you want to, you will. And if you don't want to, you won't. And I agree with her. And so West, was claiming that being attached to Sierra over the summer season of Summer House was defining him as her newbie boy. And he's like, is it that great for me, to be Sierra's puppet? This is where we enter Paige. Paige claps back and says, that would be a very lucky spot for you. And I couldn't agree with her more. Look, I love West. I think he's great. Okay. I love his energy. He's fun. He's playful. He's totally the kind of guy I would be friends with, and hang out with. But let's just call a spade a spade. You are punching well above your weight class with Sierra. Okay. And what where this is kind of taking us is really like something that it's a mystery to me how in some ways like some people just can't see their own self-sabotage. But when Paige says this is what I love. I love the friendship between Paige, Sierra, and Amanda. They have such a cool girls' friendship. Like they really have each other's back. Like, those girls aren't turning on each other. And I would be so disappointed if somewhere down the future these girls did. But the way they ride for each other, it's like I just don't see that happening. It's truly like girls, just really great friendship. And Paige is so good about she understands her value. She understands her friends' values. Like there's no gray area there. So then Kyle says, I think you overthought the whole show part and then deprioritized the relationship part. Oh my God, Kyle's 2 for 2. Kyle is 2 for 2 on the show of intelligent things, of what he said. So good for Kyle. And listen, I think Kyle actually does have some great points of view. I like Kyle a lot. But the way he treated Amanda, no, I'm not a fan of that. And also when him and Carl start getting together and Kyle's been drinking, it's not a good mix. Like it's not. But anyways, this is West. When we look back at what we do know of West's past, we know that he used to play football. He was a star. I don't know. I think he was the quarterback. I might be wrong, but he was definitely a star player in football. He was well recognized. He was in the spotlight. And then I don't know if he had an injury or something happened where he fell out of that spotlight and he wasn't playing football anymore. And that was really hard for him on his ego because he was so used to like being in the spotlight and having all eyes on him and having it all about him and having all of his validation come from like big masses of people, right? I actually dated recently a pro athlete, an ex-pro athlete, an NFL player. And while dating him, I recognized that, I started to see how he was used to being the star and the spot. And when I say the star, I mean like when you're a pro athlete at that level, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, whatever it is, the NHL, when you're a pro athlete, everyone is like catering to you, right? Everything is about you. Um, and if you're gonna hang with me and you're gonna ride with me, that ain't how it's gonna happen. That's just all I'm gonna say. It's not that I don't want you to be a star, and it's not that I don't want to help shine your star for you, but don't think you're gonna dim my star either. Like, don't think that my value is gonna have to dim to be next to you. Like, I'm just as important. And so what I'm seeing here is that when he said, you know, I was being defined as Sierra's new boy, right? He's not used to that. He's not used to sharing the spotlight. And what he fails to recognize is that he actually would have had a brighter star, a brighter spotlight had he chosen the path with Sierra. And it's not that he would have been Sierra's boyfriend. I think he was doing well enough on his own to hold his own and be seen as West, and that together, like they would shine together equally. And so he self-sabotaged himself. And I think he's going to really regret it, because I don't doubt, and I have not looked in the comments yet on all the videos on TikTok and stuff, of what people are saying now, but he definitely lost a lot of brownie points with me after this. I still like him, but you fucked up. You fucked up, Wes. And so Gabby and Sierra both say that they think that he used the show as an excuse, as a cop out to not being with her. And so then, Andy asks, like, how did your parents react to this, or how did they feel? And Wes' parents apparently loved her, which, are we surprised? I mean, Sierra is like the full package. Not only is she gorgeous, not only is she smart, and she's like got great work ethic. She's a nurse, she's a model. Like, this girl does it all. But she's also very nurturing and very sweet. And so how could his parents not love her? Apparently, his dad loved her even more, but voiced their concerns about his dating commitment issues, and that he may come across as an idiot to everyone in the long run. And well, yes, your parents are quite intelligent, Wes, and you probably should have listened to them, because you are coming across as an idiot. How you passed up on Sierra because you didn't feel like you could navigate the situation of becoming a star and like hanging out at watch parties where there's going to be other women. It's like, hello, you're in the Bravo verse. Like, it's almost all women, and like, it's like, again, it comes to that whole point. If you want to be with someone, all that stuff doesn't matter, and it's a little bit ridiculous. So in this moment, when he starts talking about how his parents loved her, Andy looks to Sierra and asks her, like, how does that make you feel, knowing that his parents felt that way about you? And she just starts breaking down into tears. She gets really vulnerable and emotional. And I feel for this girl so much in this moment. Like, I feel so bad for her, because I know that in this moment, Sierra's like, I look like an idiot. I look like I went for the fun playboy kind of dude, and I got again, and I'm just going to look like an idiot to the audience. And I just want to say, like, Sierra, you do not look like an idiot. The only idiot here is West. And, like, I really respect how she handled herself over the entire summer. And I don't blame her for taking the route that she did after cameras went down and they were dating. Like, I'm actually really happy that they did that, and she explored it. She opened herself up. Like, at some point, you can't be responsible for everyone's decisions and choices. You can go in with your intention, and you can see, like, like, I don't blame her, but like, Wes really fucked up here, and you can't always account for someone fucking up. And so I just hope she does not feel like an idiot. She does not seem like an idiot. And she's a total angel. Like, I think she's great here. So again, we now understand why her looks could kill at the beginning of the episode. Ciara talks about how, like, sex is a really important thing to her, and that she doesn't just want to have sex with anyone, and that she doesn't just open that up to anyone on purpose. And that's why she was keeping it cautious. And she just like, she just doesn't want everyone to have access to her in that way. And I think that's like really respectable. And of course, she's getting really emotional. And so, Andy's like, West, how does this make you feel? Like when you see her like this, he's like, oh, I feel bad. But I'm like, I don't think you feel as bad as you should. I don't feel like you feel as bad. I think you're a little too disconnected from this emotionally, and I think he's disconnected on purpose, because if he actually connected to his real feelings, he'd feel like a real fuck up deep down. And so Sierra even now admits to all of us, we find out that after that day where they went horseback riding, when they got back in the car, cameras were down, she said to him, she gave him an out. Listen, if this is not what you want, like, you've got an out here. I'm going to give it to you. No hard feelings. We can just move forward. You can do what you want to do, be single, all that. And he's like, no, he goes, that's not what I want. And it's like, dude, you had your out. You had an out there. She gave it to you, and you say that's not what you want. And you're going to continue with someone that is intentionally dating. Her friends are telling you, you fuck with her, we're fucking coming for you. We're going to kill you. Like Paige was like, I will kill you. Like Paige is serious. And like this, I'm really curious to see what else comes through on this reunion. But Jesse then pipes in. Oh, Jesse. Jesse Solomon tries to have his bros back for a little bit, and I can't fault him for that. I cannot fault Jesse Solomon for having his boy Wes back. He offers a very half-ass attempt to say, West really didn't have the intentions, and Sierra shuts it down so fast. She's like, Jesse, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And he's like, yeah, but I'm shut the fuck up. And I'm like, yeah, no, Jesse, zip it. No, bad timing, and poor execution. You got to come in with conviction on this one. And you didn't. So she's like, how intentional I was being. And then she cut him off because he was, because then also she's like, when they had the dinner and they realized they're not on the same page, and she left crying, apparently, Wes told Kyle that she was being cold to him. It's like, dude, what do you expect from her? Do you expect her to just be like, okay, well, we can be friends now, I mean, she was pretty clear about where she was going with this, what she wanted, what she didn't want to happen. And, and so he's like, you knew what she wanted, and you still proceeded recklessly with her heart. You knew what you were getting yourself involved in. And she's like, I gave you the best of me, and you just gave me the bare minimum. Well said. Absolutely, Sierra. So this is where Paige scorches West at the end. And she's like, we live our lives not because there are cameras. So we couldn't understand, she's saying to Wes, she's like, listen, I get it. It's your first season. There's the allure of the cameras, the allure of the audience, the allure of the fame and all of that. We get that. We don't fault you for that completely. She's like, but look at Sierra. Look at the allure of this. How could this not trump the allure of the fame, the lights, the cameras, the action, all of that? And I'm so that's why I'm saying these girls know how to go to bat for one another. And Paige is so good at delivering her deliverables. Let's just call that. Apparently, they all have a group chat, not surprisingly, where he was saying, how excited he was. Like, this is the best season ever. Like, it's amazing. Like, our season's doing amazing. And they're like, we understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, like, this is our real life. This was Sierra was in your real life. There are two people who were going through the worst period of their lives. And you're just sitting like, this is the best season. It's like you're very socially unaware. And this is where they end off, like, so things kind of end off here. And, you know, next week, because I will be looking for it, we're going to find out how the audience was responding to this episode of Wes and Sierra. Um, Now, I didn't get to the point where I forgot to mention the Captain Lee part before I go forward with the Valley. But when we go back to where Paige was talking about being at BravoCon for her birthday, and Carl told her about Lindsay wanting to like take her down at her photo shoot earlier that summer, with her friend, and like totally sabotage her photo shoot. So apparently, Captain Lee from Below Deck, who I also really like. He's a straight shooter, no bullshit kind of guy, which is like, I love that. I love that in people. Um, he lost his son to an overdose through drug addiction. His son, was going through a very painful period, and he lost his son in 2019. And Carl lost his brother in 2020 to an accidental overdose. And so Captain Lee had reached out to Carl and had really reached out on a level of, like, I know what you're kind of going through and I'm here for you. And from what I understand, Captain Lee became somewhat of like a mentor for Carl in a way. And, they've all, there are actually clips of Carl speaking very highly of Captain Lee and saying like he's like a mentor to me, he's almost like a father figure to me, which we know Carl was lacking a father figure in his life. And so this is like really this is like Captain Lee represented someone of high importance and someone who cared for Carl, like really cared for him. And apparently at BravoCon, Captain Lee wanted to bring Carl on his podcast called Salty, which I think is great. Salty's a perfect name for him. Wanted to bring Carl onto his podcast to give him an opportunity to tell his side. And he's like, they gave him all the questions, and Carl agreed to all of them except one. He's like, I don't want that question on there. Like, don't worry, we're taking it off. We won't ask you. And so they recorded the whole thing. And they recorded on a Monday. On the Tuesday, they put the teaser out. And then I believe the Wednesday, the episode was supposed to come out. But Carl reached out to Captain Lee with his publicist and just started laying into Captain Lee, saying like, you're taking advantage of me. I can't believe you're doing this. I don't want this episode to air. Like, he just like went off and was very erratic. And so Captain Lee decided to actually open up about it for the first time this week on his podcast. And I was listening to it and I'm like, this is why I tend to lean more towards believing Lindsay than I do Carl. And I'll tell you, and I know this is getting really long. We're already like over an hour into the breakdown of Summer House. But what I've noticed is there's a lot of anger that is suppressed in people who are alcoholics or are recovering alcoholics. I have friends who are recovering alcoholics. They have been sober for many, 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 many years, like well into the double digits. And I think it is a commendable journey. It is something to always be proud of. But the one thing I've noticed and observed is that there is a need to deal with underlying anger, anger that can come out in flashes, anger that can be so misdirected and so like literally like a fuse is lit in an instant. And with Carl, he's clearly at the very minimum showing signs, at least through this interaction. And what we also saw in this episode at the very beginning, of him just going off the handle and like a lot of projection and a lot of misdirected anger. And I really hope that Carl finds the right help for what he needs to do in his own journey. It's not an easy road. I think, all things considered, I think he's probably doing a really good job. But when it comes to his anger, that is something that has to be addressed. Anger is one of those emotions that we're so fearful of really connecting to and admitting. And I see this all the time. This comes up in a lot of inner child healing sessions, any kind of healing sessions with clients. A lot of times I have to get people willing to connect with their anger. And I said, if you're scared of your anger will control you. Until you are willing to be in your anger, it will control you and put you in situations where you are uncontrollable. And this is a hard this is a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, and it's difficult to get into this place because a lot of people, when they need to actually deal with their anger, are so scared that their anger will consume them. But what they don't realize is that it already is consuming them. It's just coming out in very shaded ways, like it's not coming out in the most direct way. It's coming out in indirect ways, so it can kind of not be seen as full anger. Like we saw how passive aggressive, we saw throughout the entire season how much Carl would smile, while he was like, okay, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. And that is repression of anger. Carl, I've heard people say like, oh, I think Carl was smiling because he got some enjoyment out of like causing Lindsay misery. I'm like, that's not what that was about. Carl was smiling a lot because he was repressing his anger that he doesn't feel like he has a right. He's scared actually of feeling it. And going to places where it's safe to explore your anger, like break rooms, okay, where you get to break the shit out of anything, where you are punching bags, boxing or something like, it's so important to find a healthy outlet for that anger to finally move through you. And that's something that I do believe Carl is going to need in order to truly clean up his side of the street. So that's what I have to say about that. So we'll see where we go. But enough about the summer house. Let's get into the valley. And I will say, this was the season finale of the valley. And they don't get a reunion show, which in a way I'm kind of disappointed. But also like, okay, well, we have some really great cliffhangers here for the valley. So the next season's probably going to be just as good. So I'm really looking forward to the next season. I want to start off by saying that Janet and Jax are the most self-unaware people on TV like right now. That, well, Teresa Giudice from the Real Housewives of New Jersey, that one is very like, I mean, that whole cast for the most part is one of the most self-unaware casts ever. But Janet and Jax, wow, like literally zero sense of self-awareness. It's mind-boggling that people can be this unaware of themselves. But okay, so we basically start off with Zach and Jasmine at a nice rendition of the movie Ghost, and they're doing pottery and all that. And I gotta say, Zach's pottery is like, it's pretty skilled. I was like, wow, dude, you're doing a good job there. And so they're talking about his his post on his stories about like his geolocation being in Big Bear and how that freaked out Janet. And Jasmine is saying to Zach, like, yeah, it totally freaked her out. And he's like, no way. Like, are you serious? And, like, yeah. And she was like, when she found out even a week later, and it's like, when she found out like that you weren't there, like she was even more mad. And then he's like, what the hell? It was a joke. And I'm like, totally in agreement here. The fact that Janet took this to like the level that she did, I got to tell you, Janet has no business starting drama on this show if you're going to play the pregnancy card every time drama finds you. Because the only reason drama is finding you is because you put it out and it's a boomerang. Drama's a boomerang. You start it, it's going to finish with you somehow. And so when this girl keeps pulling the pregnancy card, I'm like, bitch, no, you don't get to use the pregnancy card. And I'm not saying that I want anything bad to happen to your baby, but that's the whole reason why you shouldn't have been starting this drama in the first place. I can't stand people who like are the people who are dropping bombs everywhere and then walk away like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Why are you coming at me? And that's Janet. That is Janet to a T. So anyways, so then we cut to what's it called? Oh my gosh. This is getting difficult. There's so many J names in here. So they're at Jax's bar. Brittany is setting up the succulent wall, which looks amazing. And Jax is trying to look like he's busy polishing a stupid sign outside his building. You can tell like he's just avoiding being useful. Because Jax is not useful. He's one of the most useless humans on reality TV. So they're talking about, we kind of flash to them like having talks about having another kid. Okay. This is where I need you guys to help me out here. I'm having like a really like a question. I'm really questioning myself. I don't know if I'm experiencing a Mandela effect right now. If you remember in my very first episode when we were talking about Brittany throwing up and stuff, and I was like, yeah, because she was pregnant, which we all know she's pregnant. She just had a baby. I am so certain I'm in a different timeline right now because I could have sworn that I heard that when the news broke, when Jax and Brittany were like separating, when it all finally broke publicly, I could have sworn she had just had a baby. And then the next day they announced their separation. I remember people saying, isn't that odd to have a baby and then announce your separation the day after? I'm telling you, I heard that. And I swear I'm going through a Mandela effect. Can any one of you in my audience tell me if I am absolutely not crazy? Like, did any of you ever hear that? Like, I think I'm going through a Mandela effect. Like I'm on some other timeline. I've entered into a timeline where I will say, if that is the case, I'm in a better timeline because the better timeline is Jax and Brittany did not have a child together, a second child, I'll say, because these two do not need to bring another child into this world. Like their Cruz already, poor soul, is going to have to deal with the separation of his parents. But I'm telling you guys, am I crazy? Or is this a Mandela effect? Tell me. I need to know. Please tell me in the comments or DM me something. So, then we cut to Kristen, who, Kristen and Luke, they're getting ready to go to Colorado, best state ever. And, they're packing, but they're also, we cut to Kristen saying, yeah, so I may have misused my words. I may have said, she had a boyfriend for a year when I meant to say she had a boyfriend a year ago. Slight difference. Oops. Okay. This is why we love Kristen, because she does this stuff. This is a total Kristen Doty kind of thing. And this is why Kristen needs to be on the show, because I truly believe, okay, both Kristen and Jax are toxic. Jax is a whole different level of toxic. But I do believe that Kristen has actual heart. Like I believe that her heart does start off in a good place. And she's great for TV. Okay. She's great for TV. But we see here where she's like, yeah, oops. Like, she knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing. Then we cut to Jesse and Michelle having their awkward conversation in their garden. They're outside. And this is where, Jesse is kind of trying to say how he's trying to help Jax, because he doesn't think Brittany's ever going to leave him. And, he's trying to help Jax see like she might leave you. And then, Michelle's like, why did you not think I was ever going to leave you? And, or that I'd never leave you. And it's just, this is what I don't like about Michelle. I'm not a huge fan of her. I'm not a huge fan of Jesse either. But I don't know why, for some reason, I feel like I like Jesse more than I like Michelle. I don't know what it is. Because Jesse is a douche. He really is. But Michelle is kind of empty. Like, I don't know. It's like she's just empty energy. I, she's not a bad person. But again, I think she stepped out on her husband. So I can't applaud that. Um, I think they're both wrong in their marriage. I think they both treated each other pretty shitty. But what's really sad to just see this conversation because, Jesse's like, I just wish we could get back to where we were in 2020 when how you felt about me then because you loved me then. Don't you remember kind of thing? And she's like, I can't get there. She's like, I just don't feel the same way about you. She's like, admits to him, my feelings are different. So that's tough to watch, but I appreciate her honesty there with Jesse. That's not the easiest thing to say to someone. And I've been there. I've had to say that to an ex. But then we get to Jax's opening of his bar, Studio City, and everyone's coming in there. And so everyone's arriving. And so Janet, brings Jasmine over. She's sitting with Michelle and they start talking about, the pottery with Zach. And she's like, I can't believe you were there with him. And so what we're seeing here is Janet's like, are you siding with him? Are you siding with me? Like, what the hell? You're supposed to have my back. And it's like, this is crazy. So then Zach comes over. Oh, no, wait. So Zach comes over and Janet swears to him that she didn't send Jax. I'm telling you, these names are just like, it's like a tongue twister. Okay. She didn't send Jax to uninvite him. Bullshit, Janet. Bullshit. You didn't. Okay. So Zach gets activated because he knows that she sent Jax to invite him, and Jax has told him this much. And he's also activated because he found out that she put him on speakerphone when she had called him, and he was being vulnerable and upset in front of her two friends who were spying on him at the party where she was getting all the information from. And so she gets up. She's like, oh, I'm not dealing with this. I'm pregnant. And it's like, oh God, okay, yes, you definitely do not want to expose yourself to stressful situations, which this is definitely becoming a stressful situation, but you caused it. You brought it upon yourself and you're acting as if your hands are completely clean in this. And they're probably the dirtiest of them all. And so she gets up and leaves. And then Jason threatens Zach, which I thought was really funny to watch. This was hilarious. Didn't know Jason had it in him to get heated like that. But did we believe him? No. Look, that was all bark, no bite. Okay. Do I think he would take a swing? Yeah, sure. Do I think he could finish the job? No. No, I don't. So that was funny. And then so then Janet it starts to make Jasmine feel bad. So we're cutting now to Jasmine and Janet talking. And she's making her feeling bad for supporting Zach. And then Brittany's coming over, to Zach. And she's like, Zach's trying to tell her everything that's going on. She's like, I just want everyone to get along. And it's like, oh my God, what did you expect at your opening of your husband's bar? Jax, who is the pot stirrer of the entire group. The energy is literally embedded in this place. Drama is oozing out of the walls of this bar. It is through the ventilation system. I am sure if drama was an alcohol, it's in all of the drinks. It is built and designed to bring out the worst in everyone. So then we cut to Janet saying to Jasmine, "You're not talking to me like a real friend." Well, this is what I don't like about Janet. This is why I don't like her. Never have liked her since the beginning. Don't understand why anyone liked her from the beginning, because this girl was so transparent to see who she really is from the jump. And you know, this is manipulative. This is like, no, now let me manipulate you into not treating me like a friend, when the real friend thing would be like for me just to say, like, okay, I understand you're not going to choose sides and you shouldn't have to choose sides. Like you're being unreasonable, especially since you're the one who started it all. So people like Janet are super manipulative and lack a lot of self-unawareness or self-awareness, lack a lot of self-awareness. And I just like, she's playing the victim. She's playing the victim. You don't get to play the victim. You don't get to play the victim when you've been the architect of this entire narrative of all the drama coming up. You've been stirring the pot, cackling over it, doing your thing. And now you're like, pregnancy card. No, like, like, this isn't me. And then, your husband has to jump in, pretending like he's your knight in shining armor, pretending to be like the man who's going to save you. I just, no, no one's buying it. I'm not buying it. It's total bullshit. So then Jasmine brings Jax over to Janet. And it's like, basically he's like, you told me to uninvite them. You were the one. She's like, I did not. I didn't tell you to invite everybody. He's like, everybody. And she just gets up and, like, you can tell, like, he's like, you didn't tell me to not uninvite everybody. It was Zach and Kristen and Luke by proxy. And so she gets up because, she's caught. So she needs to remove herself, and she's doing again so under the pregnancy card. Like, don't speak to me that way. Don't use that tone with me. So then we cut to Kristen now trying to like talk to Michelle and explain, like what's been happening. And she's trying to share, like, she's trying to tell Michelle, like, Janet's been at the heart of everything. She's the one who started everything. But Michelle's not really buying it. I think Michelle's a lost cause at this point. I don't think she's going to believe it. I also know that I think Janet and her like thick as thieves right now. So I think she's Team Janet, for lack of a better phrase to use. But what's really cool here is Kristen really doesn't go in too hard. She kind of like goes in, and then she sees that she's not really getting through to Michelle. She's like, you know what? I'm just going to leave it there. Like, don't worry. I'm not going to push it. Like, I don't want to cause any problems here. So that's kind of cool. And then Jax gives his speech. And in here, he admits, like, on his confessional, that he believes that the bar is the one thing keeping him and Brittany together. Again, like, dude, talk about trying to sell yourself a narrative that is so far-fetched and unbelievable. It's like he's trying to convince himself. And this is what I don't understand. And we'll get into it now, because cameras then pick back up where we now know that Jesse and Michelle are getting divorced and Jax and Brittany are separated. Both Michelle and Brittany have moved out of their homes. Brittany's living in an Airbnb, which is crazy. But we start off with Jax really having tears and, pretending to cry. This is a total act. Jax is a sociopath. Okay. Like, no, I have no right to be diagnosing anyone. I'm not diagnosing. I'm just calling a spade a spade. This guy is a pathological liar. He shows no empathy for everyone. He's got narcissistic qualities up the yin yang. Like, this guy's a total sociopath. And I can tell you, I've dated a sociopath too, not my alcoholic ex-boyfriend. Yeah, I pick real winners, guys. I have picked real winners in my past, which is why I've been single for so long. But I know what a sociopath is like because I dated one and slept with one for 3 years. And literally diagnosed by a doctor as a sociopath. So when I look at Jax, I see so many similarities to my ex who I dated in my 20s. And God, so young and dumb. So young and dumb I was. And these are just manufactured tears. Like everything about it is so fake. Jax, do not go into acting. No one believes you. And what I don't understand, does this guy actually believe that any of us believe him? Because no one's buying what you're putting down. Like that's what's so crazy to me. That's just so checked out from reality. And then we cut to Jesse and Michelle going through their kind of conversation about divorce, and so we're seeing them talking. It's so awkward. Their poor little daughter Isabella, who's 4, she's eating her little dino nuggets, her dinosaur nuggets, okay, um, while they argue about the details of the divorce, their schedule, which they're doing 2 days on, 2 days off. Which, listen, I'm not a parent, and everyone's going to have their thing of what they believe works for their child, but when it comes to the stability of what a child needs, um, they've really like 2 days on that's a lot of upheaval. There is never any sense of rootedness for the child. So I feel really bad for that kind of schedule for their daughter. I wouldn't recommend that. But again, I'm not a parent and I don't know all the details. So then Jesse's like, did you get Malibu dog food? Like, I'm just like, dude, like how incompetent did you think Michelle was? Like, as much as I don't like Michelle and I feel like her energy is quite vacuous, um it's, she's not stupid. Like she knows how to handle the household. She knows how to get dog food for the dog. But then they start talking about the client list, the referral list, like, all the how they're going to divide the business. And he's like, I'm not signing anything until the lawyer. She goes, what do you mean no? Like, she goes, we just need to get divorced. And it's like, well, no, actually, Michelle, like when it comes to business, sorry, but you definitely need lawyers there. Like there's no way I would, if I was Jesse, I would be just signing just to let her be done with it. Then we find out that Janet has had her baby boy. So I'm happy that like everyone's healthy. And that we also find out that the boy is much more like Jason, the husband. So we're glad that he's much more like his father than his mother, because we don't need more of Janet in this world. And then, you know, let's just cut to the whole Jax and Brittany thing, okay? Because this conversation was really difficult to watch. You know, on one hand, Brittany, I mean, everyone could see what she was getting involved with. She just wanted to see the best in Jax. She saw his potential. And, I'm sure that, you know, he loved her at some point, and I'm sure that he treated her well at some point for short periods of time. And that's a hard one, because that's what so many of us struggle with, is we often can fall in love. Oh, I'm going to tell you this. If you have Venus, okay, in your 12th house of astrology, and I would look at both the 12th house from your ascendant and the 12th house from your sun being your first sign, you will likely, because your Venus is in your 12th house of hidden desires, fantasy, illusion, fears, all those kinds of things. Also, it's very spiritual, and it's very like, you can feel very transcendent. You will have a tendency to fantasize about the potential of your partner. And I'm not saying that everyone who does this would have Venus in the 12th house. That's not what I'm saying. But you're definitely there's a predisposition to that. If that's in your chart, there's a high likelihood that you either do that, or you are comfortable being apart from your partner or this person of your heart's desire, and fantasizing about what the relationship could be. So anyway, she just, she invested in his potential. And Jax just doesn't really have a lot of potential. So it was a really, I don't want to say it was a bad investment because she does have her beautiful son Cruz out of that. And I think these were important lessons for her on her journey. But she called him out on some stuff. You can tell like he's very calculated. Again, very sociopathic. He When the cameras picked up, he made his appointment to go to the therapist. Did he ever end up going to the therapist? No, he never did. Why? Because it was too far to drive. It's like, dude, you're not willing to put in the effort. You're not willing to put in any of the effort. And he's even claiming, he's like, we need the space. We need the space. Like this isn't healthy for us. I think deep down thinks because Brittany's taken him back so many times that she's eventually going to turn around and she's going to come back and he's going to get away with it. And he's going to have a little fun time in the meantime, fuck around, do whatever he needs to do to get his kicks. But I really hope for Brittany's sake that she doesn't go back to him. It sounds like she's much further away from that likelihood than closer to it, from what I've heard in interviews and stuff. And it sounds like she's a lot happier, which is a great indicator too. But listening to this guy lie and position himself for the audience so that this guy actually thinks we're dumb. Like Jax literally thinks the audience is dumb and has highly overevaluated his intelligence level because he is so transparent in what he's actually doing here. Everyone can see it. Everyone with half a brain cell can see what this guy is doing. But yet it is very clear to me that he thinks that we are all that dumb and he is that smart. And Brittany does a great job of calling him out and putting him on the spot. And you can just see that he's just ready to end this conversation. He doesn't want to have anything more to do with it. It's an annoyance to him. And, he's not coming out looking the way he wants to. And it's just, like, gosh, I got to tell you, I remember listening to Jax and Brittany's podcast a couple times and I was like, oh, is it possible that he really changed? Is it possible that, maybe not being on TV was really good for him? Man, I think that as soon as he had an inkling that he was able to come back on TV, I think that's when things really started to go south in their relationship. Now, was that the whole reason? No, I think that was just the catalyst for the end. I think obviously there was a lot of broken, weak foundations in their marriage, in their relationship. And by that I mean Jax. But yeah, so listen, if Brittany takes him back, she's not gonna be well liked either. So, but again, you should never make decisions based off of how the internet's going to react by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not saying that's what she should do or not do, but that's definitely going to be inevitable. So anyways, there we have it. This valley is at least renewed. We know it's renewed. It's coming back. They're going to be picking up cameras at the end of this month and they're going to start filming with the entire audience. I hope that Zach and Kristen get way more screen time. I really like Zach. I'm a huge fan of him. He's my favorite on the entire cast. And I hope that Janet gets something handed to her this next season. We'll tune in. But until then, next week we have our next episode of the reunion for Summer House. Now I want you guys to tell me, because we're getting to the end of that, what other reality shows would you like me to recap? Let me know so I can make sure to take notes and watch them and do them in this, because now we just have Summer House. But if there is another reality show that you'd like me to add to this, let me do so. And then, I will say this. My favorite reality TV show is Traitors. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. Season 1 and season 2 are out. Season 3 is going to be released early next year. We just found out who's on the cast. Oh my God. stellar cast. First of all, huge Survivor fan, Boston Rob. Love that guy. Love Boston Rob. I'm so excited he's going to be on Traitors. I am covering Traitors on this reality recap when it comes out. Like I promise you, I will be doing that. Sierra's on it. Tom Sandoval's on it. Dolores Cannon from New Jersey Housewives is on it. I actually really like, she's one of the only few castmates that I actually like on that show. Who else is on there? I don't know. I can't remember, but all in all, it looks like it's going to be a really good show. I'm really excited about who's coming on there. Oh, Jojo Siwa is on there. So I think I might be wrong. Am I wrong? Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I'm almost positive I saw her on that. Again, maybe it's a different timeline. Maybe it's a whole different Mandela effect. Let me know about the whole Mandela effect, guys. Like, let me know. And, guys, I have a huge announcement next week. I have a huge announcement next week. So if you missed this last podcast, please tune in. I did drop some downloads that I received, information about some Egyptian mudras that help activate the pineal gland, open up the pineal gland. That is in the most recent podcast, episode 350. God, 6, 8? Where are we right now? I don't even know. Whatever is the last podcast before this, go to that one, check it out. It's close to halfway through the show. It's a shorter show. I think it's only like 45 minutes long, but there's some cool mudras, activations that I show you in there that I was shown that connect you to the Horus energy of Horus, Eye of Horus. So that being said, guys, if you want to come to the Forbidden Journey retreat, tickets are on sale September 18th through the 21st. There's only 10 tickets being sold. So if you'd like to come again, it's going to be my last one for a while. So if you're thinking about jumping in, I think you should. And anything else that you need a one-on-one session with me. I'm here for you guys. I love you so much. Have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you soon. Thanks again for joining me for another show on the Enlighten Up podcast. I love you guys so much for all of your continued support. So remember to raise your vibe, find your tribe, and be open to the infinite possibilities held in the mysteries that surround us all. Thanks again for sharing the show with your family and friends. And if you're new to the show and you need to find out more information about me, please head on over to my website, NicoleFrolick.com, where you can join my newsletter. And please follow me on Instagram, Telegram, and YouTube. Keep your light bright, and I'll see you next week.